For today, we have a double preview of two games, both designed around very different kinds of building. First, the game powered by Dieselpunk, New Cycle, and then the other one powered by, well, a lot of strangely similar creatures in Palworld. Before we begin, it's important to point out that both games are played during early access and may not represent the current versions of them. But we begin with New Cycle. Some of you have heard this one before, but an apocalypse has happened that's completely thrown society into complete disarray, and we're going to build things back up, one citizen, one resource, and one structure at a time. New Cycle is kind of set up kind of like a story or kind of progression-based city builder. You're not going to be doing kind of a mission or a campaign, but as you complete various objectives, as your city grows, new things will become available to you, which will of course add more challenges, things to juggle, etc. So the name of the game here is going to be moving through different ages or different cycles. Each cycle is kind of think of it as aging up in Age of Empires or Rise of Nations. You'll unlock new resources, new buildings, and of course things will get ever harder. The basic city building here will rely on you setting up resource producers, resource consumers, and making sure all your citizens have all their needs and wants met. Now, one thing off the bat that I'm not a fan of, at least in the version that I played, there was no mini-map functionality. This makes it a lot harder to spot where resource producers or gatherers are, because everything kind of goes for like this run down look and aesthetic. It means a lot of buildings tend to blend together, and especially blend into the environment. And it would be nice to have an easier way to see that. Speaking of an easier way to see things, the kind of resource producer, resource consumption could be made a little bit better. While your main resources, food, coal, wood, etc., will show up in the top, including how much you're consuming, how much you're producing, smaller resources or kind of secondary or even like third tier resources don't show up immediately on the GUI. See, one of the things that this game does that I do like is that many of the resources and items that you need, specifically food, you can produce the same kind of food from different resources. And this plays into the seasonal/weather aspect of New Cycle. As the game goes on, you'll go through the 4 seasons of the year. During winter time, of course, farming gets shut down, and a lot of your other means of gathering resources goes away. So if you do not have a secondary or emergency food supply, you're kind of in trouble. Now, what can be annoying is that progression is tied to the amount of citizens you have. And at the start, you're only going to be able to get them from random events, or when people give birth and children become adults each year. As the game goes on, we play this about an hour and a half on stream, so we did not really get super far in, but the game will eventually unlock a quote-unquote world map, allowing you to set up settlements and colonies around the continent. As long as you provide daily resources to them, they will give you various resources or other aid that you can use back at your main city. And this is a pretty cool idea. If you're wondering where the difficulty of New Cycle is, at least on its normal side, this is by no means as difficult as, say, Banish, nor is it as, very strict in terms of its city building and strategies as, say, Frostpunk. There is definitely potential here, and they can make the GUI a little bit easier to follow, and maybe just get some of the early game frustrations or slowness out of the way. This could be another fantastic city builder, and I am really curious to see, what does, end or late gameplay look like in terms of your city, what resources you have available, and any other systems or unlocks that will come with it. But we will have to wait for the future for that one and see where it goes through its early access. We now switch to something that is graphically a lot brighter and happier than New Cycle, but maybe more gray in the ethical department with Palworld. So stop me if you've heard this one before. You awaken in a mysterious land with no memory, with only a loincloth on, and you must survive and thrive here. Palworld's kind of major marketing point is that this is a survival crafter meets a creature collector, and I will be confusing Pokemon and PAL throughout this part of the video, don't you worry about it. Now, the PALs themselves certainly look similar to that other game, and I'm not going to touch whether or not this is going to be a lawsuit happening, or if the Nintendo lawyers are swooping down on developers as we speak. But the major kind of, I guess, make it or break it point for a lot of people is going to be the tone that this game sets. You see, like the Pokemon games, you're going to go out and fight the PAL in order to capture them. But instead of you just having your own PAL fighting them, you're able to go into the field and, well, beat them up. And eventually you unlock guns. Yep, that's right. At some point you can arm all your PAL with shotguns, assault rifles, and set up SAM sites in order to defend against air invasions. But once you've captured a PAL, you can then take them back to your settlement, in which they will do all the hard work for you. And yes, you can probably tell the negative connotations of that very easily. And for some of you watching this, that may be the point where you are going to check out on this game, or you've probably bought 4 to 5 copies and have sent to your friends in order for you all to play multiplayer online. One final point that may bring up some controversy is whether or not the game makes use of AI-generated art for the different PALs. There have been a lot of discussions online over the weekend as I was recording this as to, are they using AI generation for the characters? Did they run it through kind of like the concept through AI? Is there any AI art in general in this game? And developer, as of right now, has been quiet on that. And it has certainly been another bit of controversy for the game. As of me recording this point, there hasn't been anything definitively yes or no about the state of Palworld. And just something that I wanted to mention here for all of you watching this preview. Now, while everyone is oohing and eyeing over a real-time Pokemon, being able to arm them with weapons and all that, there's one particular aspect of the core gameplay loop that is not being talked about that I find very brilliant, that I want more developers to be inspired by. And that is how base building, progression, and your PALs are intertwined. How this works is just like in any survival crafter, you'll be building various structures and resource producers and gatherers back at your base. And you can, of course, arm them all yourself, and it's slow and boring, and no one wants to do that. But when you set any PAL to work in your base specifically, each PAL comes with a collection of kind of job traits they are best suited at. So one PAL may be good at farming, one may be good at harvesting resources, moving resources, etc., etc. So if you want your base to become more automated and work better, you need to have multiple PALs set up and who will be able to do all the work in it. However, because each type of PAL can only work certain jobs, it means you have to go out and find more PALs to bring back to your base. But then in order to get more space to do more with your base, you need to level it up, which requires you to meet certain conditions. So this kind of progression works really well to kind of bring all the various gameplay elements of Palworld together. And I would love to see this kind of loop looked at in other designs and other kinds of genres. So the PALs themselves, they belong to, of course, different species, and the species have different elemental effects, and that will affect strengths and weaknesses. As they level up, they'll gain access to different attacks, and every PAL that's generated in the game will come with a random assortment of passive modifiers. These can be either good or bad, and there are, of course, shiny PALs that you can find that have even higher ranks or higher abilities and stats as well. Now, as you play through the game, you can only at the start take out one PAL to assist you in combat, but you can eventually unlock the ability to have PALs like kind of be around you at all times, provided they're in your party. Now, world exploration itself is quite interesting. It seems like developers have pulled a Genshin on us and have also copied the Breath of the Wild style exploration. You'll get a paraglider relatively early on. You can climb up and down any surface, provided you have stamina. And the different PAL can also come with unique abilities that can help you either in combat, help you with base building, or just help you with general moving around. And from a survival crafter point of view, only bits and baubles of the genre are here. You'll be able to construct a house or various homes. You can set up to unlock higher quality researches or higher quality goods. And of course, you'll need to repair durability. Progression in this game is built on you both exploring the world and leveling up your base and your character. As your character levels up, you'll have access to higher resources or researches on the tech tree, which will then allow you to do more in the world. There are bosses, there are dungeons to explore as well. Now, all this is really solid in terms of its gameplay loop. And like I said, the tone of this game is definitely a little bit on the questionable side. And as I said earlier, you're either going to be all in or all out because of it. But what is here gameplay-wise, even in its very roughest and earliest access form, certainly shows potential for people looking for a kind of halfway between a creature collector and a survival crafter. At this moment, this game does not go very deep into either aspect, and that may be a big point for you watching this. If you're expecting like a Rust or 7 Days to Die in terms of survival crafting, or a super hardcore creature collector raising stat allocating machine, you're not going to find either in Palworld just yet. But it reminds me a lot of the appeal of Subnautica, as a survival game that didn't really try to aim itself, position itself as a hardcore take, but just trying to do something very different and unique for the genre. And there is a lot of potential here for Palworld. And with that said, I need to start coming up with a design doc for Wholesome Factorio Meets Pokemon game. I need to pitch this to Nintendo ASAP. But with that said, we have two games, both around building, that show a lot of promise. And again, being completely different in terms of tone and structure. I would like to thank the developer of New Cycle for providing me a press key to check it out. This was played on Games Pass, which if you are interested in playing Palworld at its fullest version, you do want to get it on Steam, as it seems like the Games Pass version is going to always be delayed or behind patch-wise. Let me know what you think of both games down below, and if you'd like me to play your games in the future, they don't have to involve Pokemon, guns, or building, please reach out. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to do the YouTubing stuff people tell you to do. If you're interested in more of my thoughts on design, check out my books wherever they are sold. Visit our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where you some of the art and science of games.